With the permission of the Chair, respected Secretary and ex-officio Chairman of Iepfa, I would like to bring the House to order, and may I request all the participants to kindly mute themselves.
Yes, please, Uma.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. On behalf of Ipf Authority, I welcome you all to the very significant national webinar on investor education and awareness. This national webinar has been organized in association with all we know with the ICSI, Institute of Company Secretary of India. Today, the Secretary Corporate Affairs, Rajesh Verma ji, is the chief guest for the inaugural session. We welcome you, sir. He will also be delivering the keynote address. Your presence, Secretary, sir, is itself highly motivating all the time. We're very happy to be joined by Dr. K.P. Krishnan, sir, guest of honor for today's national webinar. Quickly, I would like to read out the names and welcome our members, eminent members of the Ipf Authority.
Just to interrupt you here, actually this webinar timing is starting from 4. So after that, the recording and everything will start. So
that's all right. We're just doing the housekeeping announcements at the moment.
Nikat, now you can start. It's 4:02. So you can start the recording.
Start the recording. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Make it live.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we proceed?
Recording has started.
Yeah. Maji, please proceed.
Recording has started. Recording has started.
We welcome the eminent members of the Ipf Authority. In the order, I would like to welcome Shri P.V. Narasimha sir, Shri Gopal V. Kumar sir, Shri Rakesh Jain, Shri Rajiv Sekhar Sahu ji. We are also joined by Joint Secretary MCA and CEO Ipf Authority, Shri Manoj Pandey ji. And we are also joined by Shri Navneet Chauhan ji, General Manager, Iepfa. And last but not the least, our very dear partner in progress, CS Ashish Garg, President ICSI, and Shri S. Nagendra Rao, Vice President ICSI. We are also joined by the eminent panelists today, Shri J.N. Gupta, Founder, MD, Stakeholders Empowerment Services, and Professor Bijan Mishra, Founder, Consumer Online Foundation. We welcome all of you. In not taking much of your time and initiating the process, I would like to inform that today also the day coincides with the formation day of the Iepf Authority, and we're very, very happy that we have the blessings of Secretary Sir and all the honorable members and all the eminent personalities here. On that note, I would like to request CS Ashish Garg, President ICSI, to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Maji. Respected Shri Rajesh Verma sir, Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Shri Manoj Pandey ji, Joint Secretary, MCA and CEO, Ipf Authority, Shri K.P. Krishnan ji, former Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and Ipfa Chair, our respected members of Ipf Authority, Shri Gopal Kumar ji, Shri Rakesh Jain ji, Shri Rajiv Sekhar Sahu ji, Shri P.S. Narasimha ji, and Shri Navneet Chauhan, General Manager, Iepfa, and Vice President of ICSI, Shri Nagendra. Very good evening, everyone. The word investor, while always has brought to our minds images of stock markets and hordes of people shouting at the top of their voice. Well, yes, this was the scenario of any stock exchange until a few decades ago. With advancement in the technology, it seems both magical and intriguing as to how the markets work at the click of a button and slight touch on the screen of our phones. Warren Buffett, most popularly renowned for his investment skills, said, and I quote, "We don't have to be smarter than the rest. We have to be more disciplined than the rest." While he might have said these words, keeping in sight his expectations from fellow individual investors, yet I believe his words would fit completely at a macro level as well. It is not only the individual investors who need to be disciplined in his buying and selling activities, rather the entire stock market is required to be disciplined, and I believe it is for the purpose of rendering this discipline the SEBI has been put in place. While the regulator intends to regulate and discipline the receiving end of the market, it is equally important and significant that the rights of investors are well protected. As this thought was understood, the same was ingrained in the law. The Investor Education Protection Fund was established under the Companies Act in 1999. and it is for the administration of IPF that Government of India had on 7 September 2016 established Iepf Authority under the provisions of Companies Act 2030. The authority is entrusted with the responsibility of administration of the Investor Education Protection Fund, make refunds of shares, unclaimed dividends, matured deposits, debentures to investors, and to promote awareness amongst investors. While the first is a financial and technical function of the authority, the second comes across more as social responsibility, and it is for the accomplishment of a second objective that the ICSI too has extended its unstinted support for strong, educated, informed and clear investor base and achievement of the highest standards of governance in the Indian corporate sector. Even further, sustainable growth and development can be achieved with an equal focus of all the sectors contributing towards the growth of Indian economy. The pace of achieving the vision of New India by 2022, when we celebrate 75 years of India's independence, may have slowed down a bit during the current pandemic, but with an initial fall during the early part of April 2020, the stock market have shown continuing strength. Among all our initiatives, IPF keeps an exceeding priority owing to their role in fortifying the capital market and capital liquidity of the country. As we tune ourselves to the new normal, the stock market seems to be already adjusting itself for the differences for what we see right now. The RBI, SEBI, as well as Ministry of Corporate Affairs has been on their toes to intricate actions to keep the wheels of the economy rolling and ease of hardship for individuals and businesses alike. The spate of such measures have helped in keeping the interest of investors alive. It is during these times that the role of institutions such as IPFA will be of paramount importance in educating the investors and making them aware about their rights and duties. During the lockdown period also, IPFA have disbursed and released crores of rupees of unclaimed dividend and shares. That is really an ease of living for the investors. I heartily compliment efforts of Team IPFA under the dynamic leadership of its CEO Shri Manoj Pandey. We all are cherished with the memories of Dharamshala event in which himself, Shri Anurag Thakur, MOS of MC, has appreciated the collective efforts of all the organizations under IPFA. Many more events were lined up, but due to lockdown, we were not able to hold it, and today we are celebrating this 4th Foundation Day of IPA through this virtual mode. It indeed gives me a feeling of pleasure and pride as the ICSI portrays its solidarity once again in the achievement of the indeed objectives of this authority, which will pave the way for the strengthening of the governance structure of India INC. While extending our best wishes to the all members of IEPF on the occasion of Foundation Day of IEPF Authority, I, on behalf of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, thank the Ministry of Corporate Affairs for granting the opportunity to organize this national webinar. We look forward to many more such partnerships in the near future. I also take this opportunity to announce that ICSI has in principle agreed to enter certain MOUs in order to facilitate our members to avail lifetime free exclusive co-branded credit cards with Bank of Baroda Financial Services Limited and financial assistance by way of various loans by Poonawalla Finance Private Limited. It will help our members to achieve their greater satisfaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, President Sir. Thank you very much, President Sir. We are very happy that ICSI has partnered with us for this endeavor. Ladies and gentlemen, the IEPF Authority, since its inception, has focused not only on furthering the cause of investor education and awareness, but also on developing a robust policy framework and deeper understanding of the issues related to investor protection. As IEPF Authority enters its 5th year of operation, the need for this core function also needs to be strengthened. On that note, may I now request Shri Manoj Pandey, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs and CEO IPFA, to kindly address and deliver his opening remarks.
Respected Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Dr. K.P. Krishnan, IPFA Research Chair, members of the authority, Shri P.S. Narasimha, Gopal Kumar, Shri Rakesh Jain, Shri Rajiv Shekhar Sahu, President ICSI Shri Ashish Garg, Vice President Shri Nagendra Rao, delegates attending this webinar. Very warm good afternoon to all of you in today's national webinar on investor education and awareness. The event assumes more importance since substantive provisions of IPF and IPFA came into force in the year 2016 on this date. And we are indeed honored to have amongst us members of the authority, Secretary Corporate Affairs, who also holds the position of Chairman IPFA, Dr. Sri K.P. Krishnan, who has recently joined as Chair Professor for IPFA at NCAER, and who was also member of the Committee on Investor Awareness and Protection, which had come out with the sets of recommendations on investor awareness and protection in 2009. As we might be aware, IPFA was established under Section 125 of the Companies Act with twin objectives. One, refund of matured debentures, deposits, and unpaid dividends along with unpaid shares to the rightful claimants. And second, investor education and awareness. In last 3.5 years, following the twin mantras of ease of doing business and ease of living, the authority has settled dividends and about 73 lakh shares in 13,800 cases. Near about 14,000 cases have been settled, refunding dividends and shares amounting to market value of rupees 450 crores. And in last 1.5 years, about 12,000 claims have been settled. The process of settlement of claim itself has been made completely online now. Therefore, even during the period of lockdown, the process of claim settlement continued, although with reduced strength. The officers and the executives working there continued, although with reduced strength, to work even during the lockdown period, as was also just now communicated by the President ICSI. The officers and dealing hands, in fact, not only continued to work from office, but also from home because of our online process of settlement of claims. The authority, in fact, settled more than 500 claims in the month of April and in early part of May 2020. And so far, around 2,000 claims have been approved, and more claims have been approved, and more than 10 lakh shares have been refunded. Important. The authority has taken many steps to educate and make investors aware. In this regard, let me quote from a paper on investor education and protection prepared by OECD, which states, differences in investment knowledge and skills may play a role in determining wealth inequality. Individuals that have higher financial literacy tend to earn a higher rate of return on their investments due to their use of more sophisticated products, their understanding of the benefits of diversification, and the fact that they tend to pay lower fee for investment in refunds. Educated investors will ideally be aware of the risk they are confronted with. They will be better equipped to recognize and avoid frauds and scams. Thus, here comes the most important role and all-important role the IPF authority is envisioned to play. Make investors and citizens financially educated and aware. This is how the citizens and investors would also be protected. Towards investor education and awareness, the authority has taken a number of measures in last 2 years under the guidance of the Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, who also holds the position of the Chairman of the authority. The authority has entered into Memorandum of Understanding with Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan CSE governance, banks like Bank of Baroda, ICICI, Kotak Bank, and India Post Payments Bank. In association with professional institutes like company secretaries and chartered accountant institutes and CSE governance, the authority has organized around 50,000 investor awareness programs so far. 2 research chairs have been established at NCAER and IICA. IEPFA has been spreading the message through social media handles, jingles, videos, short films, documentaries, newspaper ads, programs, and through display of scroll messages through Doordarshan, which can be seen on Doordarshan nowadays. The scroll messages are running 24 hours. IICA has impaneled resource persons on behalf of the authority who are also holding investor awareness activities on behalf of IEPFA. Last year, 2 state-level conferences were organized at Bhubaneswar and Dharamshala. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, since physical gathering is not possible, webinars are being organized on the topic during current year. And 2 major webinars were conducted during last quarter. Investors are being made aware of not only value of a good investment, but also why one should be beware of fraudulent and Ponzi schemes. The delegates, as we all know, Ponzi schemes have been known to us because of one person, Charles Ponzi, an Italian-American who launched an investment scheme in early 20th century, promising to double investors' money. Ponzi, however, had no business model to double the money in such a short time. All he did was use money being brought in by the new investors to pay off the old investors. The scheme ran until the money being brought in by the investor was more than the money being paid to the old investors. And once this reversed, the entire scheme collapsed. We all know in last decade itself, number of investors have been duped, losing money in our country. Several scams like Speak Asia, Tarada, PACL, 1998, vanishing companies, plantation companies, to name a few, rocked the financial market. All this happened in spite of presence of many acts and regulators like the Price Checks and Money Circulation Schemes, the Chit Funds Acts, SEBI Regulations Act 1999, Multi-State Cooperative Act. A major reason for the popularity of all these schemes is that they offer a higher rate of return than conventional forms of investing such as bank deposits, post office schemes, and other conventional forms of investment. They primarily appeal to what we known as the basic human greed. In spite of presence of multitude of acts and regulations, the investors are still being duped. This is where the importance of the investors' education and protection lies, and role of IEPFA assumes a greater importance. Sirs and delegates, I will not take more time since delegates would be keen to hear from our esteemed members and Honorable Secretary. Just to remind the delegates from the professionals and corporate sector present here, may avail CFSS and LLP settlement scheme and be part of the good corporate governance. Also help IEPFA and Ministry of Corporate Affairs in facilitating ease of doing business and ease of living, both towards setting up of a business to incorporation of a company by using Spice Plus, availing 10 services in one go, and settlement of claims to online mode at IEPFA. IEPFA is creating a movement for investor education, awareness and protection. If we all join hands together, investors would be protected, they would be made aware, they would be educated, and towards making Indian economy a vibrant and a sound one. IPFA and Ministry of Corporate Affairs is committed to the twin cause of ease of doing business and ease of living. Let us all follow the principles of Yog Shema and Lok Sangrah and enable the country to become a global economic power. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for those opening remarks and significantly pointing out in a very brief manner the achievements of IPFA and the way forward. May I now request our member, IPF Authority, Shri Gopal V. Kumar, to kindly address us.
Shri Rajesh Verma ji, Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Chairman, Iepf Authority. Shri Rakesh Jain ji, Shri Rajiv ji, Shri P.S. Narasimha ji, distinguished members of IEPFA. Shri K.P. Krishnan, former Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and IPPFA Chair. Shri Manoj Pandey, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs and CEO. C.S. Ashish Garg, President, ICSI, and Shri Nagendra Rao ji, Vice President, ICSI. Shri Navneet Chauhan ji and Professor Mishra. Namaskar and good evening to all of you. At the outset, it's a very great occasion that we are celebrating 4th Foundation Day of our authority. It's a great achievement. Last 4 years have been a great journey. After I joined as a member of the authority, I went to the website of IPF Authority. The content I saw, right, the different medium, the content, type, variety of the content, I was really impressed the kind of work this authority has done in last 4 years. And I remembered one saying that an educated investor is a protected investor. Right? Education is important. And if you don't do important things, then protection becomes urgent. Education is very important. Education takes away a lot of urgency from your action, from your reaction. So we have to focus on education. And if we focus on education, protection to large extent is already addressed. That is very important. I also thank ICSI to conduct this national webinar on investor education and awareness. And the topic which we have chosen for today, need for robust regulation for investor education and protection, is really timely. Robust should come before regulation or after regulation. That is very important. We have to create robust regulation or we have to create regulation robust. These two have got different strategy, right? So robustness, what I understand, regulations are there, right? We have to make it robust with support of all the stakeholders. That is more important. What is investor education? Investor education is nothing but, creating abilities in investors so that they can process economic and financial information to take informed decisions. There are 3 important words in this definition. One is that creating abilities. Creating abilities, the role of education is very important in creating abilities. Economic and financial information, that comes from the sellers of the product. What kind of information we have from them, what kind of benchmark we have for the information. I know different regulators have different set of information which they have to disclose. Your IIDA will have different setup, your SEBI will have different setup, the requirement. Obviously, it depends on the product also. But can we think of a standardized information requirement from each of these products which can really help investors? Because for investors, it does not matter who is regulating. For them, this is just channelizing the savings and you should provide the right opportunity and right investment avenues. And if you see investor education, I see 4 connotations of investor education. We talk about literacy, we talk about awareness, we talk about education, we talk about empowerment. What exactly we are doing? I think this is a journey. It starts with creating literacy. Then we move to awareness, then education, and then empowerment. It's like in a hierarchy theory of creating investor empowered. You cannot make an investor empowered if he is not aware of, he does not have the required knowledge, right? Or if he does not have the awareness about that. So we have to somehow understand And when we create the content, we have to understand what part of that spectrum it is taking care of. It is for creating literacy, because the content will change when you are just creating awareness or education or empowerment. Obviously, everything is aimed towards creating the right environment for investments. But it is very important as far as our strategy goes in creating that framework. And why it is important? There are various reasons that we should have a right framework for investor education. But one important thing, if you see the recent RBI data, financial savings have come down, right? Isn't it the right investor awareness is important to create that environment where we enhance and augment our financial savings, which can lead to capital formation and ultimately economic growth, which is very important ingredient for economic growth. That is very important. Our role is very important in creating that kind of environment. Second, being an actuary, I will also think about what is happening on retirement planning for. We have to see the demography, right? After 20 years, 25 years, now we have 65% of the population below age 35 or 36, right? This will reverse after some time. And if you see the shift in policy as far as retirement planning is concerned, we are moving from defined benefit to defined contribution, where everything has to be decided by the person who is saving money. You need right kind of education to take that call. Elements when you say education, you have ability, creating ability, and providing right information. Yeah, let's touch upon it, and I will try to within the time, right? So one is ability. When you see the ability, creating ability, Mr. Manoj said that, risk appetite is very important for investment. How many times we talk of risk when we talk of return? Many times I have heard that we talk of absolute return. Do we talk of risk-adjusted return? We have to get the culture of risk-adjusted. Return cannot be absolute across the investment avenues. You have to see the riskiness of that investment, and you have to somehow present it that it is risk-adjusted. Second, which is when we have IEPF chair at two places, behavioral economics and behavioral finance. That's important to create our content, keep in mind the behavioral, right? There may be overconfidence, disposition effect and all that. We have to get some videos on behavior. We have to capture the behavior of investors in that and have the learning towards the end of that video. So that is very, very important, that we have to create that ability through behavioral economics, behavioral finance. Third, which is very important for education, we should have some kind of framework. Instruction, please don't invest, or it can be just advice that you read the document before investing. Are we clear which content is addressing the information need, which content is instruction mode, which content is advice mode? Are we clear about that? Yes, we are clear. Many of the contents which I have seen, but we should have to make it further robust, right? What is the content medium and what is the channel, what is the material we use? Last thing in this framework would be monitoring and evaluation. Generally, all these education programs are evaluated qualitatively. Can we develop some kind of mathematical model? For example, I just thought of, can you have some kind of financial product penetration in that market as the benchmark? For example, you identify 5-6 regions. People were investing in bank and now they have moved to stock market or future or options and derivatives. Can we have that kind of benchmark? Whether the complexity of the product where they invest in has gone up. So we need to develop such kind of monitoring and evaluation benchmark. That benchmark is very important. We cannot measure our efforts where we have what we have done, right, unless and until we have an objective way of assessing and benchmarking. Now coming to information part, what information we share depends on the product also. What you have to disclose about a life insurance product will be different. You show that maturity benefit, death benefit and all that. The stock market will be different. Can we have a uniform connotation of that?
I read it somewhere, and today I found that there are 7 parameters on which every investment can be categorized. And the acronym for that is System T, where S is that what is the security of that paper, Y is what is the yield, return. Again, third S is spread, volatility of that return. Fifth is time horizon. What is the time horizon of your investment and what is the time horizon of that investment? Whether that aligns, there is asset liability match or not. You cannot put money for short term for retirement planning. So there should be time horizon. Expense. Different products have got different expense of and different intermediation costs. Do we have some kind of measurement? What kind of expense will have to that the investor have to pay? That is also important. Then marketability, and for marketability where we can divide that assets on terms of liquidity, how fast we can make it liquid, so that different goals can be aligned with this kind of investment. And last but not the least, T stands for tax, which becomes sometimes the most important factor. Which when you sell your investments, right, that you can say tax, this is March ka mahina aa gaya, you just put this money, right? But that should be the last one. Obviously, this is one of the important considerations, but sometimes we ignore other considerations. So now coming back to that question, that last few sentences now I have, that's very important to have robust regulation. We have to create the existing regulations robust by creating some kind of education and protection environment of that, right? We have to continuously align our regulation with the changing environment. Hindsight is important in creating regulation. Insight also is important, but more than that, foresight is the most important thing in regulation. With those words, thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gopal V. Kumarji. May I now request Shri Rakesh Jain, Member Iepf Authority, to kindly address us.
Good afternoon, my respected Rajesh Ji, Secretary, Minister of Corporate Affairs, and Chief Guest of this session, Mr. Ashish Garg, President ICAI, our distinguished members of IEPF, Shri K.P. Krishnan Ji, IEPF Chair, distinguished panelists, and delegates. At the outset, I'm noticing that we are celebrating the 4th anniversary of IEPF. At this occasion, I would really put my regards and gratitude to all the visionaries and people who have brought IEPF to this stage where it's a force to reckon. It's doing great job. So my regards and my appreciation for all the good work which has been done till now. I have joined as a member of IEPF only in this July, and hence I will not have much of experience in presenting much on the past and on the working of IEPF. However, I have attended one meeting and I have found that the staff as well as all the members are very proactive and they are really working hard to give it a new shape and to keep on improving consistently the working of IEPF. My belief is that we live in a dynamic environment, and in a dynamic environment things keeps on changing. What the situation was pre-COVID may not be the situation post-COVID. What the situation is now in COVID may remain maybe for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, no one knows, except that WHO is predicting around 2 years. Hence, things will keep on changing. And hence, even the regulations, the way investor education and protection need to work, will keep on requiring changes. In this regard, I am of the firm view that today there are various agencies which are working on investor education and protection. Be it stock exchanges, be it SEBI, be it RBI, or be it various associations like ICAI, ICSI, and me, and various other authorities and people who are conducting continuous education and protection measure programs. Use of technology is becoming more and more of importance. In fact, as has been said by Ashish ji, that 2 decades back, the stock exchange used to operate with outcry system, and at that point of time, the volume was hardly 1,000, 2,000 crores, and even settlements used to take place after sometimes 15 days, sometimes 30 days, and sometimes even 45 days. Now we have got a system which is totally automated, and the turnover runs in lakhs of crores every day. They got settled on T+2 basis, that is transaction plus 2 basis. Huge payouts and pay-ins are handled. So the importance of technology is imperative. I don't need to explain and emphasize much on that. As far as education part is concerned and protection part is concerned, stock market or investing is a very, very large subject. In fact, I've personally been investing for last 40 years. And today also, I don't think I can claim that I'm an expert or I know everything. Every day is a new day for me for learning, and we keep on learning. But there are instances, there are certain things which remain static in most of the time, like the concept of fear and greed, the concept of people picking up money by assuring large returns. Now, these are the things, if we are able to educate our investors that these things are going to lead into losses or you're going to get duped, or you see, I typically talk sometime in some of the lectures that earlier there used to be babas who used to come and who used to say, okay, I'll double your gold, you give me your gold, and they will say, okay, give me this, and they will do some mantras and take your gold, and after some time, once they will double it, two times they will double it, a third time they would have taken all your gold and they would run away. Now this is exactly, and at times we see happening in the market, that people assure return, for some time they give good return, they give assured return, and after some time they just disappears. We need to see that robust and stringent regulations are in place on them. We need to see that those people are taken to task so that other people do not dare to do those things. The systems and processes gets clearly established to identify such black sheeps in the market, and in case there are new first-time investors and all, it will be much better we educate them that don't invest directly by yourself. Better go with mutual funds or go with some established advisors and go with their advice. Because this learning is a very, very long process, and it is very difficult for anybody. I know some of the people, who talk to me, and they will say, like somebody, very senior person in stock market, 5 years back he said, Rakesh, I know now everything in the market, we'll do wonder. 3 years later, he suffered huge losses, and then he says, oh, I need to really learn more. I'm now learning new things. So every day is a new learning in market. That does not mean that we should stop investing in market, because market is the investment in capital market is one of the best way and easy way to invest. But on the other hand, we need to see that there is a proper protection and risk assessment which is being done. We need to ensure the availability of funds, the time of the funds. We need to see the sayings of people like timing the market is not important, time in the market is more important. So we need to see that are we investing for long term or are we investing for short term? If you have short term, but again, everybody do not understand these. So we need to see how we pass this information to most of the people and suggest them that in case you are not technically built or you do not have that education, then at that point of time, we should go with advisors or with mutual fund. In fact, at one of the seminar which was conducted by NME, it was being stated and it was being discussed that investing should be brought in schools right from 6th standard, so that there should be one class even on investing, so that people start learning about investing from an early age. Now, maybe something like this, once it gets implemented by the government, will go a long way in customer education. But protection is also a very, very important thing, that we need to give them examples. We need to, like, if we look at, SEBI gets a lot of complaints where investor gets duped. Now, if we compare those complaints under different categories and explain and tell the customers, look, this has happened and how people have lost money. Please don't make this mistake again. A lot of time, stock exchanges are coming out with advertisements. In fact, SEBI has come out with a very interesting ad campaign, which is on demonstration effect. And if time permits, I would like to take 1 minute on that. The video goes like this. The person says, oh, Vinod has made a lot of money in the stock market. And finally, it kept on going that Vinod has made a lot of money in the capital market. So everybody was investing in the capital market because Vinod has made a lot of money. At one point of time, one housewife, while cleaning utensils, asked her husband, by the way, who's this Vinod? And then the whole issue came, who's Vinod? And finally, there was no Vinod. So sometimes the demonstration effect which gets created because of which people start investing also creates a euphoria with which people get duped. My view is not that all the people who are investing in the market gets duped. There are a lot of intelligent people, there are a lot of experts who are operating in the market. It is important to take their help, but we also need to point out how people have lost money, how people have been duped, so that people do not make at least those mistakes. High assured return is a very common factor on which people get duped. People say we'll give you 30% fixed return. People will go and deposit the money. NSE has actually put an ad on this, and they say that the person has gone happily invested, and after 3 months he goes back to that office and there was a block on the door of that office because that office was closed because they were not able to fulfill their commitment of 30% return. Now, these are the things which will happen over a period of time. I will come back on IEPF, and in IEPF, in my first meeting, I found that everybody was very proactive. In fact, the chairman even suggested that they should set up the subcommittees. And I'm very pleased. Our CEO and the staff of IEPF had very promptly set up subcommittees which will be working on identifying new and important areas by which we can make more robust and important regulations through which we can do better service on investor education as well as protection. With this, I will rest as there is a long queue of speakers. And then there is a, panel discussion also. So I don't want to take too much of my time. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jain. May I now request Sri Rajiv Shekhar Sahuji, Honorable Member of IPF Authority, to kindly address us.
Good evening and welcome all of you. Very dynamic leader of corporate affairs, Sri Rajesh Pandey, the legendary bureaucrat Sri KP Krishnan ji, members of IPF, Mr. Gopal B. Kumar, Mr. Rakesh Jain, the PS Narasimha, young dynamic president of ICSI, Sri Ashish Garg, very balanced leader in the form of CEO IPF, Mr. Manoj Pandey, a general manager who spearheads the process, Mr. Navneet Chauhan, Uma, and all the panelists. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to celebrate the 4th Foundation Day of IEPF. I think IEPF is slowly becoming a household name in the country. In the very short time, through various efforts made by the leader of IPF Authority, the CEO, and all the members, it is slowly getting into every individual who is connected to the investing world, and the reflection of it is coming by the number of applications coming for refund. As has already been discussed, the IPF Authority has a twin objective. One, to refund the unclaimed dividend and shares. And the second is a very large task of investor education and protection. Let me give a brief about the first aspect, that during this period, it has traveled a very tough journey, and slowly and steadily, the number of refund applications have been increasing, and for that I must thank and congratulate all the members of IPF and the former chairman and secretary corporate affairs for taking keen interest in ensuring that the funds are received, especially the small investors, they receive their due share at the earliest. And in the process, a good number of applications have been processed, though the volume of or the amount of refund is relatively low compared to the total funds in hand. But this is a good beginning, and as is always said, the right approach is a strong single step at a time. And the process has been eased, which was coming as a major hurdle, and slowly and steadily the number of application process is increasing, though the members of IPF would like that number to be increased and more propaganda, more advertisement to be made for people to know, because as you know, the 7-year plus very old shares going back to the legacy of problems, and now it is time that the IPF makes special endeavor to ensure that the real claimant receives their money. And I think IPF is already working, and the committee that has been established by the new secretary will again work to ensure that it is received by the people who are the real claimant. Second, the bottleneck between the process at the hand of the companies and IPF and a proper coordination needs to be further strengthened to ensure that there is no delay either at the hands of IPF or in the hands of the companies. Many times there is the papers falling in no man's land are delaying, and sometimes though we receive the complaint, but Mr. Manoj Pandey and his team is able to address expeditiously, and they have been successful to a large extent. As far as the further process of transmission is concerned, I think the committee has given the report, and the necessary amendment has already been done, and the process is done to ensure that the transmission process for shares are also expedited. Now, this is as far as the first task of refund of dividend and shares are concerned, and for that every stakeholders has been allotted, and they have been made to work around the clock to ensure delivery. As far as the investor education is concerned, it is a gigantic task, especially in a country like India, where we need to grow at a fast pace, but at the same time, the financial terrorists who have been hitting very hard in intermittent period through new techniques, and by alluring the people who feels that the high return is the sole criteria for choice of investment, slowly the concept is changing, and it has changed with more jolt and shock. And it has been like a pandemic in certain backward states like Odisha, Bengal, and few other states, where villages after villages have been devastated financially and economically because all their savings have been ruined by the Ponzi schemes and the so-called terrorism. And we must ensure that we work more strongly with the fundamentals rather than the high-end jargons to meet the common man who needs their investment to be protected for use at the appropriate time, and they keep their hard-earned savings for their children's education, for their children's marriage, and in their urge to get a higher return, they suffer in the hands of these Ponzi schemes and the financial terrorists. And for that, IPF has taken many steps, working through NYKs, volunteers, the CSCs, the education through involvement of the banks, where people are able to access the basic reading, where it gets registered in the mind of the people that yes, anywhere you find something very lucrative, you must be suspicious of, and do not get carried by the high return that you can foresee, because nobody is going to give you high return from their pocket. They are only at best going to cheat you. Somebody may cheat you faster, somebody may cheat you late. But anybody who is promising high return is bound to cheat you. Please don't trust, because I always say, if the banks, despite their robust system, struggle to give you 6, 7, 8% return, how somebody on earth can give you a 30% return? He can only be a fraud, the highest order, to ruin the economic background of the people. And therefore, the IPF has a gigantic task not only to do through themselves, but also coordinate with all the other agencies like SEBI, the Reserve Bank of India. And we have been advising that IPF should be the apex body who should hold meetings with all other agencies to ensure that not only the education is done in a strategic manner, but it also covers maximum number of people, and their programs should be evaluated in a manner so that whatever changes are required with a participative mode, they are further changed to suit the requirement, because you can't be talking of the basics all the time. You have to slowly elevate the level of education to the people for achieving the objective of what we should try to do through proper financial literacy, proper involvement of people, easy access to the system, working of volunteers in the process, and all these things will help us to ensure a strong saving mode for this country, a good saving mode, a good regulatory framework, a good accessible working of SEBI, the Reserve Bank of India, and all other agencies can help mobilize our saving in the right direction to help India get its desired objective. We have great potential. I am sure under the leadership of present Secretary, Sri Rajesh Verma ji, with the legendary figure, Mr. K.P. Krishnan ji occupying the chair, to carry out good research and to ensure that the message reaches every nook and corner of this country, so that the objective for which it is established is achieved. I once again congratulate each one member of the IPF for the 4th Foundation Day, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. It's always a pleasure to hear to those inspirational words. Thank you. May I now request Shri P.S. Narasimha, Honorable Member, Iepf Authority, to kindly address us. You may have to unmute yourself, sir. You may have to unmute.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
My pranams to everybody. Honorable Secretary Rajesh Verma ji, Ashish Garg, the President of ICSI, the dynamic Joint Secretary in the IPF Authority, Manoj Pandey. One of our friends called Mr. K.P. Krishnan as the Bhishma Pitamaha, which I would acknowledge like that. Mr. Nagendra Rao, Navneet Chauhan, and my colleagues in this authority, Gopal Kumar ji, Rakesh Jain, Mr. Sahu. When Mr. Jain started, he said that he has just been a member recently, and I thought I could equate with him, but he too turned out to be an expert in the field, as everybody before me who spoke on the subject. Myself, coming from the legal field, could relate to this authority only in this manner, that it has, I think, a higher constitutional objective to fulfill. And I thought that related to economic justice. And the reason for this is that if an investor has a right, for that matter, any of these investors or shareholders, then there must be a remedy to that right. And so far as the remedies are concerned, in our country we have courts of law, and the access to justice is not an easy process. and going to the court, asking for a remedy for fulfillment of somebody's right which has been violated is the most difficult process in our country. I think this is a great thing that the Parliament has done by bringing about this authority, and this institutionalization of this authority has, in my opinion, given a great amount of access to justice. And that is exactly the obligation that the authority has to fulfill and ensure that somebody's investment is being not returned back amount or with a higher interest on it, then definitely the authority will have to play the role and take all necessary steps. That, I think, is a very important obligation that we all need to work on. There is another aspect of it that relates to that the institution itself, the contemplated under the statute, talks about institutionalizing it, number one, and also to protect the investors by empowering them, by ensuring that they have the necessary knowledge to protect that. That's a rather extraordinary thing, because remedies are always provided, but no effort is taken at any point of time to ensure that the persons who have made investments are given the necessary knowledge. This aspect is a very important obligation on the authority to see that the investor has the necessary knowledge, and knowledge is actually the power. As has been very correctly said, that when he has the knowledge, and he will be able to protect himself very well. There is a third aspect also I just wanted to touch upon and then leave it at that, because we are now at the initial stage, and this relates to the institution already established under the Act. See, there is always a gap between the establishment of an institution for which there is a framework given under the statute. Rules are provided, regulations are provided, entire infrastructure is provided. But then invariably, what would be lacking is the personnel who are manning the institution. In fact, this reminds me when the entire constitution was made, Ambedkar said that we are giving you this constitution, but if we have good people at the place, we don't need the constitution. But we don't have good people, then the constitution is of no avail. It is in this context I am stating, because I join very clearly Mr. Sahu, who said that from the very beginning we had a very good impression about how the authority has been functioning. We are in the hands of very competent secretary, Mr. Rajesh Verma, who has immediately after taking over ensured that all the members meet for the first time and then start working on this. And we in fact met, and subcommittees were also formulated, and the process seems to be dynamic, and I'm very, very happy about it. And I'm thinking that in times to come, the objective of the authority will be realized, because each one will be able to put in his little bit and his expertise in this and ensure that the investors are not only given the remedy to this, there will also be process by which there will be a prevention of any kind of a deception, and the investors are protected completely. Finally, I will end by saying that it is also perhaps necessary to have a perspective from an outsider, how we would look at the institution, how the accessibility is there to the institution, some kind of an impact assessment. If it is made, we will be able to judge how we are performing and doing well. With this initial thought that I have about the authority and my association with it, I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and congratulate all of us who is part of this authority for this, I should say, a birthday celebration, because this is the 3rd anniversary of it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Narasimha sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor to have with us Dr. K.P. Krishnan as the guest of honor for the national webinar today. Dr. K.P. Krishnan, as we all know, is the IPF Chair Professor on Regulatory Economics at NCAER. In his capacity, Dr. Krishnan leads a group focused on research and policy outreach in the broad area of regulatory and public economics. Sir, as you all know, Sir is an illustrated member of the IAS, and before his retirement, he was Union Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, and also Additional and Special Secretary, Department of Land Resources, Ministry of Rural Development. Everybody knows, if you Google a Sir's name, there are 116,000 pages that pop up in Google. So not wasting much of anybody's time, may I now request Dr. Krishnan to kindly deliver his special address, Sir.
Thank you, Umaji, for that extra generous introduction. A very good evening to all the assembled senior guests here. Secretary Corporate Affairs and Chair of the IEPFA, Mr. Rajesh Verma, members of the IEPFA, CEO of IEPFA, Mr. Manoj Pandey, other colleague from the IEPFA, ICSI President, Mr. Garg, his colleague office bearers, his Vice President, Mr. Rao. With Mr. Narasimha's permission, I would just like to clarify that Mr. Sahu and I are an old mutual admiration society, but it was the opposite. I called him Bhishma Pitama, he called me Tendulkar, though in terms of looks, it may be the exact reverse. But thank you for alluding to that remark. Coming more seriously to the topic for today's discussion, the Companies Act 2013 was, I think, a watershed in many respects, and many major reforms were introduced in that legislation. The provisions relating to IEPFA are, I think, one of the most significant but hugely underappreciated reforms of that piece of legislation. In line with what the other speakers have said, maybe I could just spend a few minutes reinforcing why does a country like India need an IEPFA? There are statutory regulatory authorities in all the sub-domains of the financial sector. For banking, we have a statutory regulator. Securities market, we have one. For insurance, we have one. For pensions, we have one. Commodities regulators merged with SEBI. SRAs have been established for three objectives. The statutory regulatory authorities typically have three objectives in their legislation. There is the market development objective. There is the objective of regulating the market. And thirdly, there is the consumer protection objective, which typically is explicitly mentioned as an objective in each of the legislations that I mentioned. Now it's the last of these, the consumer protection in finance, which is the focus of IEPFA and central point of today's program. Now, consumer protection in finance potentially can have two aspects. There is the prudential aspect and then there is the conduct related aspect. Now, the IEPFA authority and members know this very well. Prudential aspect relates to the liquidity, solvency, riskiness, general health of the individual institution as well as the markets, but all of the above keeping in mind consumer protection. Likewise, the second objective, which is the part relating to conduct related, but before I go to the conduct related part, let me spend just a few minutes on the prudential part. Consumers are not typically well placed to judge the solvency, liquidity, the riskiness, and the general health of institutions and markets for a variety of reasons. But one important reason is sections 125(3)(b) of the new Companies Act as well as Rule 7B of the IEPFA rules do a very important service in as much as they bring together in one forum under one umbrella, investor education, awareness, protection, and a committee which can function in a coordinated manner, and in a coordinated manner for consumer protection issues. And I think the importance of the IPFA is in this aspect: coordinated action on all fronts of finance. And let me just spend a couple of minutes before I conclude on what I think needs to be done to further the agenda of the IEPF as envisaged in the Act. One of the headlines in today's Indian Express, many of you would have seen it, is the Ambi Valley Limited related activity, which allegedly collected over 60,000 crores through 4 cooperative societies allegedly belonging to a group, well-known group called the Sahara Group. Most of us would recall that these are lingering over decades. Manoj, while introducing the topic, spoke about a number of the scams that have hit the Indian consumers over time. Some of you would recall, December 2019, the newspaper Mint ran an excellent 4-part series on the 10 scams, the 10 big scams of the recent past. And the title of that series, and the subtitle is very, very interesting. The title is How Indian Regulators Cost You Money. So it is not the financial sector as per that article and the players which cost you money. It is the regulators not being sufficiently attentive that cost you money. Now, in the light of this, and in the light of what Manoj has said and what we read in the newspapers, what is the huge unfinished agenda in consumer protection? A, there is obviously some strengthening of laws that needs to go on. This is a continuous exercise, this will go on. But I think there is a much greater and a more pressing role, some of which was alluded to by my close colleague and friend, Mr. Sahu. We have to reorient statutory regulatory authorities. The incentives of the employees of the statutory regulatory authorities are not entirely aligned to consumer protection. For instance, we constantly hear about the deputy governor and the executive director in RBI in charge of monetary policy. In SEBI, you hear about the ED or the member in charge of corporate finance. Does any of us hear about the consumer protection deputy governor in the RBI? So I think there is a whole agenda relating to incentives of employees. There is also the second issue of the attitude of the top management and the publicly articulated agenda of top management, where consumer protection and finance needs to be a central point. And the last point is greater amount of resources to be earmarked inside the regulatory agencies for consumer protection activities. Typically, and I've studied this a little bit, in most of these regulators, this does not get kind of resources, the kind of attention that is needed. So for the future, what would I suggest very quickly? Keeping in mind sensitivities, because we are, after all, dealing with independent statutory and regulatory authorities who have their own existence, who have their own boards, who have their own mechanisms of accountability. Keeping all that in mind, I think IPFA is very well placed to stimulate, encourage intellectual work. And I'm grateful to the previous secretary, Mr. Srinivas, current secretary, Mr. Rajesh Verma and Manoj, for working on exactly this agenda. I am myself occupying one of the IEPFA research chairs focused on consumer protection and finance, and I think we need more of this kind of intellectual work. Number two, I think we need to do a lot more empirical work. And I think the member, one of the members who spoke before me, Mr. Gopal Kumar, very nicely alluded to this. he spoke about the continuous research in behavior of Indian customers. So I think related to this, IEPFA should become a storehouse and a repository of the best database on how are Indian consumers investing, saving, and doing their financial products. And this has to be a continuous work. So intellectual work, empirical work backed by data on investor protection is what I think we need to do. I'm glad to see that a lot of it is getting very good attention. And in addition to the chair that I occupy, in addition to the chairs that you've created, I think there is scope to do more. But from my chair's point of view and from my institution's point of view, I want to place before you the offer that I'll be more than happy to be part of this movement and do whatever I can, strengthen it, strengthen your hands, and support the cause of investor protection. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Before I request Secretary Sir to address us, sir, there are some significant releases that have to be done with your hands. May I request ICSI to please present the releases for so that Secretary can release them virtually. Sir, the first publication is FAQ on virtual meeting. The current pandemic situation, sir, as we all know, has made people and corporates more technology-centric, sir. Government of India has taken various measures in order to facilitate smooth functioning of the corporates. So board meetings through video conferencing and other audio-visual means have been provided in the Companies Act 2030. And with recent circulars, MCA has made elaborate provisions for holding general meetings through video conferencing. Sir, this book, which I will be requesting you to kindly release, is an FAQ and virtual meeting, is a small measure of, it's an activity of ICSI towards guiding our stakeholders on the subject. Let's all put our hands together. Secretary Sir has just released this. Thank you very much, sir. And as said, the second significant publication is Certificate Course on GST, with a view to enable the members to understand the nitty-gritties of the new law on GST, sir. The PMQ committee of ICSI is launching another batch of Certificate Course on GST. The objective of this course is to enhance the knowledge as well as to provide avenue to the members in global service market. May I now request Secretary Sir to please release this. Thank you very much. And quickly, sir, the third one is Certificate Course on Forensic Audit. Then the PMQ committee of the ICSI, recognizing the need for forensic audit in the emerging economic scenario, has decided to launch this certificate course on forensic audit. Forensic audit specialization is an increasing demand consideration, increasing incidents, as we all know, of cyber crimes and fraud detection. And this gives us an opportunity to launch this course. The registration in both certificate courses on GST and forensic audit are opening from 8th September to 30th September. I would request Secretary Sir to kindly, launch this. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the chief guest for today's national webinar. Thank you very much, Secretary Sir, for gracing the occasion as the chief guest. Secretary Sir, as we all know, is also the chairman of Investor Education Protection Fund Authority. He is an eminent member of the Indian Administrative Service. We all in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and the fraternity knows about the illustrious career of Secretary Sir, but Sri Verma is in his own capacity known for extraordinary deliverance and in his refined district soft style. Before joining the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Sri Verma has held various significant positions. A few of them are starting from his career from Odisha. He's been also the Special Secretary, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation, Family Welfare, before joining as Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It is my great privilege to request Secretary Sir to kindly deliver the keynote address.
Thank you very much. Respected guest of honor, Sri K.P. Krishnanji, members of the authority, Sri Gopal V. Kumarji, Sri Rakesh Jain ji, Sri Rajiv Shekhar Sahu ji, Sri P.S. Narasimha ji. The President of ICSI, T.S. Ashish Garg ji, Vice President ICSI, Sri Nagendra Rao ji, my colleagues in the IPF authority, and dear delegates. It is indeed a pleasure to deliver the keynote address today in this national webinar. This day, as you know, also coincides with the substantive provisions relating to Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority coming into force. As we all know, the Government of India has established this authority under the provisions of the Companies Act 2013 to promote investors' education, awareness and protection. Apart from making refunds of shares, unclaimed dividends, mature deposits, debentures to the investors. The Government of India's financial inclusion drive has brought a number of savers into the organized financial system. As new investors join the markets, particularly from the smaller cities and the rural areas, the core task of IPF authority of ensuring that the investors make informed decisions as to their investment choices and are adequately protected from frauds, etc., become more imperative than ever before. Financial literacy and investor education in a country like India is indeed a gigantic task. And the IPFA, as the apex of statutory authority, has to take many steps to ensure that the financial literacy reaches every nook and corner of the country. Since its inception, the IPF authority, in its constant quest for excellence, has been adopting various measures to improve the citizen service delivery. The claim refund has migrated from manual mode to the online mode, thereby emphasizing the ease of doing business and ease of living. It is heartening to note that IPF authority has launched large-scale programs to boost investors' education, awareness and protection. With almost 50,000 investor education programs being conducted in rural and urban areas by program institutes and partnering organizations like the CSC e-Governance, India Post Payments Bank, Bank of Baroda, Kotak Bank, Nehru Yuva Kendra, Sangathan, etc. To further the academic research in the field of investor education and protection, the IPFA has set up IPF research chairs at leading research institutions. The chair at the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs has been established for carrying out research on contemporary issues. Through the outcomes of the research chair, the authority will be able to develop a very strong theoretical and academic foundation for investor education and protection in the country. Further, the IPFA and the National Council of Applied Economic Research, NCAER, have signed a memorandum of understanding for setting up the IPF chair on regulation to undertake a program of economic and regulatory research at NCAER on issues related to investor education, awareness and protection, with the aim to conduct and publish research that will strengthen the investor climate in India. Sri K.P. Krishnanji, who is present today with us, he has already assumed the charge of the IPF chair professor in regulatory economics at the NCAER. I'm sure Sri K.P. Krishnanji will lead a group focused on research and policy outreach in the broad areas of regulatory and public economics. The authority has undertaken a number of digital initiatives with a view to reach out and connect with the stakeholders through various digital platforms. Social media accounts of IPFA have been activated on major platforms for better citizen engagement. the IPFA has switched to working in e-office mode in order to enhance transparency, increase accountability, and transform work culture and ethics. The use of e-office has helped usher in more efficient, effective, and transparent intra-government transaction and processes. IPFA is committed to better service delivery to citizens and faster grievance redressal. It has been decided to build a mobile application as well as learning management system, LMS. The National Institute of Smart Governance has been tasked with building these applications. I think the mobile app is expected to be ready in next 3 months. The authority had conducted 2 mega investor programs by way of organizing state-level conferences, one in Odisha and another in Himachal Pradesh. In view of the prevailing pandemic situation, these programs have been halted for the time being, but I'm sure as the situation eases, more such state-level conferences would see the light of the day. Meanwhile, the authority is organizing webinars and connecting with the investors through other modes. On this occasion, I would urge the members to pool synergies and come up with innovative methods for reaching out to claimants and beneficiaries. I'm sure the expertise of the members will come handy in devising a comprehensive communication strategy. A multi-pronged approach in dissemination of information along with multi-language audiovisual mode for dissemination of awareness messages on social media, digital platforms, etc. can help us reach the last beneficiary. I'm happy to note and inform that IPFA has settled about 14,000 claims in the last 3 years and had refunded more than 72 lakh shares having market value of more than rupees 450 crores. During lockdown period too, the authority has continued to settle claims and transfer shares and dividends to the rightful claimants. In its endeavor towards prompt citizen service delivery, IPFA will focus on effective and timely grievance redressal mechanism along with a strong and effective financial outreach program. This will help us to create a robust ecosystem for investor education and awareness. I personally believe that investor education is an ongoing exercise and needs innovative mechanism, particularly when market is aspiring to have new and more innovative financial products. Friends, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had launched the Company's Fresh Start Scheme 2020 and the LLP Settlement Scheme 2020. These schemes are valid till 30th September 2020 to allow the defaulting companies and limited liability partnerships an opportunity to file documents, returns, etc. without charging any additional fees. With respect to delay in filing and grant immunity from prosecution, on this occasion, I'll request the companies and LLPs to avail the benefits of the scheme. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has made several strides in improving the legal framework, simplifying the procedures and speeding up the decision making for ease of doing business to usher in a healthy environment for investment and corporate growth. We have moved 14 places, as you all know. We are now at 63rd position among 190 nations in the last World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report, which was published last year. This is on the back of various economic reforms launched by the government. Our target is to get within top 50. With our integrated and concerted efforts, I'm sure we'll achieve this target sooner than later. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Secretary Sir. May I now request, on behalf of IPFA, may I now request Shri Namni Chauhan, General Manager, IPFA, to kindly propose a vote of thanks.
Respected Secretary, Corporate Affairs, Honorable Members of IPF Authority, respected Dr. K.P. Krishnan Ji, IPF Chair at NCAER, Joint Secretary and CEO, IPF Authority, President ICSI, Vice President ICSI, and other distinguished guests and delegates. On behalf of IPF Authority, it is indeed my privilege to propose a vote of thanks today. The authority had become functional during the year 2016, and during the last 4 years, the authority has embarked upon a journey touching various milestones. During this period, the authority has taken several initiatives. The authority migrated from physical mode of claim settlement to online claim settlement process. During the year 2016-17, only 10 claims were settled, and now in this period of 4 years, we have settled more than 14,000 claims and have made refund of shares, dividends, and other deposits of more than rupees 400 crores. Sir, I would also like to again inform the August gathering that during the pandemic situation also, we have kept working and have left no stone unturned to deliver the services to the citizens by making online refund to the claimants. In the field of investor awareness, the authority has taken several initiatives and has organized more than 50,000 investor awareness programs and disseminated the message of investor awareness through print, electronic and digital media. We are in the process of developing a mobile app and a LMS, which will surely further help in achieving this objective of citizen service delivery, as the mobile app will have a facility to file the claims online on IPF website, IPF claims. Although we have a long journey to go, we hope that under the guidance of Secretary Sir, we would achieve new horizons. On behalf of IPF Authority, I would like to thank Secretary Sir for sparing his valuable time to address the August gathering today. I would like to thank Dr. K.P. Krishnan, IPF Chair Professor at NCAER. Sir, I am sure that through the research support, the field of investor education and awareness will go a long way in the country. I would like to thank honorable members of the authority, Shri P.S. Narasimha, for providing regulatory insight on the subject. Today, Shri Rajiv Shekhar Sahu, who has been instrumental in process reengineering of claim settlement, Shri Gopal V. Kumar, and Shri Rakesh Jain for addressing the gathering. Sir, we look forward to work with you to take authority to new heights in achieving its mandate. I would also like to thank Shri Manoj Pandey, CEO IPF Authority, for his constant guidance and motivation to take the mandate of IPF forward. I would like to make a special mention for ICSI and its President Shri Ashish Garg. The authority has a long association with the Institute, not only in the field of investor awareness, but it also recognizes its contribution in the area of claim settlement, be it review and amendment in rules to make the claim process simple and online, or to provide the assistance
I think we've lost the network, sir. Yes, now we can hear.
Thank you, Ms. I have finished.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shri Navneet Chauhan, General Manager, IPFA. On behalf of ICSI, I would like to request Shri Nagendra D. Rao, Vice President, ICSI, to conclude and propose a vote of thanks. Shri Nagendra Rao, you may have to.
Yeah, very good evening. Shri Rajesh Verma ji, Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Shri K.P. Krishnan sir, former Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Shri Manoj Pandey ji, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Shri Rajiv Shekhar Sahu ji, Shri Gopal Kumar ji, Shri Rakesh Jain ji, Shri P.S. Narasimha, Shri Navneet Chauhan ji, Shri Bejan Kumar Mishra ji, and all the esteemed members present in today's celebration of the 4th Foundation Day of the IEPF Authority. At the outset, I would like to thank the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and IPFA for having a joint program along with ICSI in celebrating and making us a part of the event on the National's webinar on investor education and awareness. The moment we talk about investor awareness or we talk about the governance, I am reminded of a shloka of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verse 21, which covers most of the facet which today has been discussed at great length. And I quote, it says, Trivadam narakasya idam dwaram nashanam atmanaha kamaha krodaha tatha lobhas tasmad itat trayam trajet. So it means that there are 3 gates leading to the hell of self-destruction for the soul: lust, anger, and greed. Therefore, all should abandon these 3 characters which has been specified. In whole deliberation, we spoke about how ease of doing business, ease of living, creating a moment of investors' protection, education. Educated investor is a protected investor, creating abilities, empowering investor by creating abilities and providing right information, literacy, education, awareness, right environment. Financial savings are down when right environments needs to be created. Similarly, various initiatives taken by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and IPF and with regards to the various programs conducted, it is really indeed a spread of education, spread of knowledge, where we talk about knowledge is the power. Stimulate, encourage intellectual and empirical work. Prudential aspects, conduct aspects, support in the cause of investor protection. Investor makes informed decision, financial literacy, research institutes, academic foundation, knowledge sharing, strengthening the investment in finance. I wish to thank each and every speaker present over here today for sharing the knowledge and spearheading for the growth of the small investors so that rightful claimant deserves and receives the money. So I wish to thank each and everyone. May I request Dr. Nikhat Khan and Saurabh Jain to kindly share the Shahid Ki Beti certificate as a memento of our gratitude to all the esteemed speakers for today's. Over to Nikhat Khan madam, can you kindly display the Shahid Ki Beti certificate? Sir, this is the Shahid Ki Beti certificate. As a part of ICSI, ICSI has taken this novel initiative. Instead of contributing by way of memento, we have decided to contribute the amount to the martyr's daughter, so that it will help in the education of the martyr's daughter. So this certificate, I would request to kindly scroll down and issue and display all the Shahid Ki Beti certificate to all the esteemed dignitaries present today. The first is Shri Rajesh Verma ji, second Shri Gopal V. Kumar ji, third Manoj Pandey ji, Shri Rakesh Jain ji, Shri Rajiv Shekhar Sahu ji. So on your behalf, the contribution will be going to the martyr's daughter.
Let's all
Shri
put our
P.S.
hands together. It was a wonderful initiative of ICSI.
And the framed certificate will be arranged to be delivered to your respective offices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nagendra Rao sir. That was indeed a splendid initiative of ICSI, the Shaheed Ki Beti certificate. And we congratulate and convey our good wishes to all the recipients, the Honorable Chief Guest and the guests of honor. On that note, the inaugural session of the National Webinar on Investor Education and Awareness comes to an end. In a short while, we will now be commencing the panel discussion. We are very happy to be joined by Shri J.N. Gupta, Founder and MD, Stakeholders Empowerment Services, Professor Bijon Mishra, Founder, Consumer Online Foundation, and the other panelist is Shri Navneet Chauhan, General Manager, Iepfa. With the permission of the Chair, we will now commence the proceedings of the technical session and the panel discussion. Sir, as we all are aware, the theme is need for robust regulation for investor education and protection. I would like to invite all the panelists and request Shri Navneet Chauhan ji to kindly initiate the panel discussion. You may have to unmute yourself, sir. Yeah, the slides are visible, sir. You may have to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Good evening. I will be making a small presentation about the IPF procedures and the grievance redressal mechanism that is available in the authority. I will be briefly starting about with the constitution of the authority. The authority has become functional, as we all know, on 7th of September 2016. On this very day, the IEPF accounting, audit, transfer and refund rules 2016 were notified. As we all know, the Investor Education and Protection Fund is to be utilized for the purpose provided in the Companies Act, in the section 125 of the Companies Act. The first and foremost utilization of the fund as specified in the Act is refund of unclaimed dividends, unpaid or unpaid amounts that have been transferred to the fund by the companies. Second is the fund is to be utilized for promotion of investors, education, awareness and protection of the interest of the investors. These are the functions of the authority. These are which are being displayed on the screen. To process the refund of shares, unclaimed dividends, mature deposits, debentures, application money, sale proceed for fractional shares, and promotion of investor education. So, investor education, awareness and protection. So, the relevant sections and the rules of the Companies Act are section 124, which deals with the unpaid dividend account, and section 125, which deals with the IPF authority, its constitution, the manner of administration of the IPF fund, and other details. Under these sections, the relevant rules that have been notified on 5th September, initially on 5th September 2016, and which have been amended from time to time are the Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, Accounting, Audit, Transfer and Refund Rules 2016. These are the key provisions of the section 124 of the Companies Act. Companies to transfer the dividend amount which has not been claimed or paid within 30 days from the date of declaration to the unpaid dividend account within 7 days from the date of expiry of this period of 30 days. Then finally, after 7 years, this amount, if remaining unpaid, is to be transferred to IEPF. These are the provisions of section 125, which we have already spoken. I have already spoken initially. Then there is section 124, which also deals, among others, about the transfer of shares related to the unpaid dividends, which are also to be transferred to the IEPF authority. For this purpose, the authority has opened two demat accounts. One is with the depository NSDL and other is with the CDSL. As of now, we have received shares which have market value of about 25,000 crore rupees in these two demat accounts. Apart from the dividends and deposits of about 4,000 crores which have been transferred to the IEPF. The various forms that have been notified under the provisions of the Companies Act are Ipf Form 1, which is a statement of amounts credited to Investor Education and Protection Fund, Ipf Form 2, which has been amended in September 2019 for including the details of nodal officer of the company for processing of refund of IEPF, and it also provides for statement of unclaimed and unpaid amounts which may become due for transfer to IEPF during the next 7 years. Then there is a form IEPF 3 which deals with the amounts and shares which could not be transferred to the IEPF due to a court or a tribunal or any statutory authority order. Then there is a statement on the shares transferred to IEPF in the form of a form E-Form Iepf 4. Then the most utilized form is Iepf Form 5, which is the application to the authority for claiming back the unpaid amounts, deposits and shares out of the Investor Education and Protection Fund. It is a simplified web-based form, very easy to fill. This has been amended in September 2019 to make it the process of refund completely online. This is a PAN-based verified form. Any person who is making a claim has to register with the help of his PAN, and the details get verified with the database of Income Tax Department. Then there is a e-verification report that on submission of the form, it automatically moves to the company for e-verifying the form, and the e-verification report is submitted online to the IEPF authority. The claimant is able to view the status of his form whether it is available with the company or with the authority, or whether it has been approved or it has been marked under resubmission, the claimant can see the status of his form. There is one more form, Ipf Form 7, which again deals with the amounts that are required to be credited to IEPF on account of dividends that have been declared on the shares transferred to IEPF. For the purpose of facilitating refund to the claimants, as we all know that earlier it was not mandatory to file the details of claimants whose amount have been transferred to the IEPF. Since we know that the fund itself has been constituted in the year 2000, whereas the authority came into existence in 2016. So during this period, companies were not mandatorily required, though they were required to transfer the fund, but they were not required to file the details of the investors. So to collect the data of the individual shareholders or deposit holders whose amount have been transferred during this period to IEPF, as a one-time activity, a new form IEPF 1A has been launched. So since many of the nodal officers of the companies are participant to this program and company secretaries are also there, so I request that you kindly, if the company has not yet filed this form for those periods, you kindly take this on top priority so that the refund of such amounts can be made to the claimants. This is a statement of the details of shares and amounts that have been transferred to IEPF. As I already spoken, during 1920, the IEPF has received a total amount of about 4,300 crores, and during the year financial year 1920, an amount of rupees about 1,800 crores had been transferred to the fund. The shares that have been transferred to IEPF have a market value of about 25,000 crore rupees, and about 80 crore such shares have been transferred to the fund by the companies. This is again the refund procedure which I have already spoken about. The claimant is required to file the online form available on the website of the authority and send all the documents, physical documents like the share certificate or the indemnity bond or the advance receipt, all such documents which are listed in that form, which are required for verification, are to be sent physically by the claimant to the nodal officer of the company. The form has to be filed online and these documents are to be sent to the nodal officer of the company. Form gets auto-transferred to the nodal officer of the company. Then the nodal officer of the company, based on documents received and the data available with the company, certifies or verifies the claim, and it moves automatically to the IEPF authority. These documents, physical documents like the share certificate, indemnity bond and advance receipt, these are retained by the nodal officer of the company. This has been implemented from September 2019. For the forms filed prior to that, the documents are required to be transferred to the IEPF authority. Nodal officer furnished the e-verification report to the authority and claims are accordingly processed by the authority for online refund after verification of the claim. This is just a comparison of the process reengineering that was implemented in September 2019. Earlier there was a complete physical process, then there is a re-engineered process which is a totally online process. In the earlier process, the documents were transferred to the required to be sent by post to the nodal officer nodal officer will send a physical report along with the documents to the authority. Authority will process the claim and manually, and it will approve, reject, and finally it will transfer the shares and amounts to the claimant. Now the process is completely online. The documents are retained. I have already spoken on this issue. The documents are retained by the nodal officer, and the nodal officer submits the e-verification report. The claim is processed in the system itself without any paper in the authority. Completely online process, transparent, timely, and the approval and rejection are also generated automatically by the system. So just for the benefit of the stakeholders, I have summarized the standard operating procedure that is being followed in the authority for settlement of the claims. We verify the KYC documents of the claimant and the name that is available in the share certificate and in the records of the company or and the records of the authority. For this, we rely on the Aadhaar card, PAN card, passport, other government ID proof. Then the company this is the process that is being followed in the authority. The company also sends a copy of the original share certificate to the authority, bearing the name of the claimant. If there is a issue of succession, then we require the succession certificate, or if the value of the market value of the claim is less than 2 lakh rupees, we require the transmission related documents, which are retained by the company but submitted through the scanned copy is submitted to the authority. Then the company, after satisfying itself with the genuineness and the eligibility of the claim, it approves and make the online refund in the demat account of the claimant, along with the online transfer of the dividends or deposits in the bank account. This is the standard operating procedure that I have already discussed, that how we look into it. Means if there is a mismatch in the name of the claimant, we rely on the gazette notification for name change or the marriage certificate or any other document related to variation in the name. Then we also collect for need affidavits in case there is a major variation in the name. Then we look into the details of the shares that have been transferred to the IEPF through the form Ipf Form that has been filed by the company. We verify the demat account number that has been mentioned by the claimant through the client master list that has been submitted by the claimant. And we verify the details of amount through the forms, details of amount that is required to be refunded to the claimant through the various forms like IPF 1 or INV 1, the earlier form, or the form IPF 1A. There is an issue here that if the form is not filed by the company, if the details of the claimants, the shareholders is not filed by the company, then such proportionate deductions are made from the refund. So I request that all the companies should file these forms, especially the form IPF 1A, so that the genuine claimants can be so that the refund can be made to the genuine claimants. This is the statistics of the claims that has been filed with the authority during the last 4 financial years and the current financial year. We have made refund of about shares, 74,47,000 shares during the last 4 financial years, and this has a market value of more than 400 crore rupees. Then we have made refund of about 12 crore rupees to the claimants related to deposits and dividends. Around 10,000 claims have been approved by the authority, and around 4,000 such claims have been rejected on various grounds like non-receipt of the verification report or the documents, or non-submission of the physical share certificates, or not completing the process. So this is the statistics of the working of the authority related to claim refund. We have established a grievance redressal management system. It is a IVRS based toll-free number, interactive voice response system based toll-free number, and the claimant can dial this number to know the status of the claim. There is no manual intervention required for knowing the status of the claim, and in case of any doubt or difficulty, the claimant can speak to the operator. So we receive around 350 to 400 calls per day from the claimants. Then we have also an email ID for settling the grievances and addressing the grievances of the investors. Soon we are proposing that we will establish a web-based grievance redressal management system in which the claimant will be required to fill the form, and it would be addressed on the system itself. Then we are also proposing to develop the mobile app, which will have the features of not only filing the form IPF5 but also grievance redressal. So this was the brief talk about the IPF procedures that are being required to be followed by the companies and the IPF authority, and the grievance management system available with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure that with your presentation, all the participants, I'll be very happy to share that there are some 10,000 participants viewing on various social media platforms, and with the clarity that you have presented the IPF forms and the procedure, and also the initiative taken by IPF, this will definitely be motivating our young participants and many more who are interested to take the company secretary as a profession and a career. So on that note, I would like to invite the next panelist, J.N. Gupta ji. He is the founder and managing director of Stakeholders Empowerment Services. He is ultimately responsible for all firm strategy teams and operations. He has over 37 years of diversified personal experience in public and private sector, including 2 terms with Securities Market Regulator, SEBI India. May I now request J.N. Gupta ji to kindly start his discussion.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to ICCI, thank you to IPF Authority for inviting me to share my views. And it is very happy occasion for me because I am one of the writers of this IEPF rules way back in 2014-16, and I feel very happy that something which we started is coming to reality and it is doing a lot of good work. Now, I would not be able to get into what IPF is doing in procedurally, what something is doing, but one thing is very clear, that there is a awareness to almost many investors, if I cannot say to all, but to a large majority of investors, that what is IPF and what it is being doing, because when they get a letter from the company that your shares have been transferred to IPF Authority, or your dividend has been transferred or your dividend will be transferred to something. So that means awareness is coming. But that is one part of it. But then the issue is that investor protection also is very important thing. And as many speakers before me have said very same thing, the problem that is there is the investors are not cautious. And I would say the first thing is that greed brings grief. And greed and grief are married perpetually. They can never be divorced. So the moment investor chase the greed, it will come to the grief. That is first part. The second part is this, that all authorities, whether it is IPF or MCA or SEBI or RBI, PFRDA or IRDA, whatever authority may be, they can only make rules for your protection. But protection has to come from you. And I give a very simple example. When we go to bed in the night, we ensure that our doors are locked. When we sit on a chair, we ensure that the chair has proper stability and we will not fall. But when it comes to investment, we all forget all those basic precautions. We believe words that some people will be telling you, that double your money in 6 months or 1 year or 2 months. We lose all our common sense. And as long as we blindly hope that somebody is there to protect me, we will always be losing money, will always be taken to the task. The laws are there for your protection, but the first step is start from you. The second thing is this, that if fraudster has a motive and his only concentration, the sole concentration is doing the fraud and you are the victim. Whereas any regulator or something, they are not aware of the fraud. In many cases, they are aware of the fraud only after it has happened and the investor has lost. I always say that a regulator comes to know when the dead body is brought to them for the post-mortem, that what really happened. But before the dead body is there, it is the investor who themselves can cure it. Problem is that we do not do, and our memory is very short. Satyam happened, there are Sahara happened, Rose Valley happened, so many frauds have been happening. Harshad Mehta scam happened, Ketan Parikh scam happened. But what happened? We feel that somehow someone is going to protect me more than what somebody has protected other people. That's not the case. You have to protect yourself. The second most important thing is this, that we do investment without understanding it. We don't understand what is our role. Now, I ask a simple question. When investors are investing in shares, how many of them are voting on those shares? How many of them are questioning the management of the thing? What happens? As long as you are earning, you are happy, you don't create shares. But the problem happens slowly, and one day it becomes a big problem. One investor can stop problems only when they start participating in the affairs of the company. Unfortunately, investors are not participating. The other thing is this, that do not trust people blindly. I have seen many cases where people are investing in options, futures and derivatives without even understanding what is the spelling of derivatives. And just because somebody has told them that he made good money in derivative and his money doubled or whatever happened, but that is statistically not possible that every person will be doubling. That I have seen many investors just following what they read on the paper or a newspaper portal or something, that buy this, it will something like this, it will double or it will give you return. Now understand one thing, that since when everybody has become in this word saint who wants you to make money and not he making money. So obviously when somebody is giving all that publicity that this share will double, this will give you 20% return and blah, blah, he has some motive. He is not a holy cow who is giving you a sermon that let you gain money, he will not want to gain money. And other thing is this, never do something which is not in your capability. Many people just following others, just do intraday trading that buy today, sell tomorrow, whatever even during the day. Please never do all these things because you don't understand. Only when you understand thing, do it. So I would stop at this thing and we will continue in the discussion part.
Umaji, kindly unmute.
It's my proud privilege to invite the next eminent panelist, Professor Bijon Mishra. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, it's a huge CV. So I will have to actually dedicate one full episode for introducing Professor Bijon Mishra. But sir, your smile and your blitz spirit says it all. When you just come either on the screen or on the stage, you entirely light up not the participant, their hearts, you motivate, inspire. 45 years of professional career, sir. 33 years experience in consumer education and advocacy. 25 years as an international expert on user consumer focus. I think these three sentences are more than enough, a humble tribute to you. May I now request you to kindly start your discussion, sir.
Thank you very much. Umaji, I salute your stamina. You know, the way you have conducted the show and the way you have moderated it, it's a great show. You have taken us all forward. First, let me start by congratulating, I met the Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs for the first time today in the virtual world, Shri Rajesh Vermaji. Rajesh Vermaji, congratulations, and of course, a very able and competent Joint Secretary Manoj Pandeji, with all the other teammates, you know, within you, Navneet Chauhan, and all the members of the IEPFA and the dynamic chair of ICSI, Shri Shri Ashish Gargji, and the Vice President Nagendra Raoji. I want to go straight to the participants and people who are listening to us. And I want to first congratulate them for listening to all the work which is being done by the Government of India in terms of protection of the investor, which is a huge activity which has been done successfully by the present government. And I want to also take this opportunity to congratulate our very dynamic Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and his cabinet colleagues for bringing up this law, for making it effective and making it pro-consumer. Dr. K.P. Krishnan ji, whatever you said was actually music in my ears. In my 35 years of my career on consumer protection, what we wanted is now going to happen, what you just gave a roadmap to us as the chair of NCIR. It was very much needed, the consumer focus. I will take you all back to the year 1991, when the Central Excise and Salt Act of 1944, which is a British Raj law, got amended to develop a fund known as the Consumer Welfare Fund in 1992. And I fondly recollect how we had to go up to the Supreme Court to give a directive to the government to collect this money from the industry who were keeping it with them, the money which did not belong to them, which was the excise refunds. And ultimately the Supreme Court had to give a directive that the Consumer Welfare Fund should be made
because the money which doesn't belong to the industry were wrongfully enriched and gauged and kept by the industry for profit without returning it to the people to whom it belonged. And that is where the journey started. And I would like Dr. Krishnan to kindly look at this issue, that how the history started and from where it started. And I'm sure, he will come out with great suggestions and proposals for the present government. And knowing the attitude of our Prime Minister, it will not take time to bring in the dimensions of consumer protection in whatever we are doing. हमारे जितने लोग हैं, उनका केवल एक ही कहना है कि हमारा पैसा हमको दीजिए, उसके लिए हमको भीख क्यों मांगना है? ये हमारा पैसा है, आप क्यों रख रहे हो? आप हमको क्यों नहीं दे रहे हो? So there is always a lot of excuses given. Oh, because you don't have this document, you don't have that document. Oh, I can't identify you, I can't do that. We have to make the process very, very investor friendly. You see, I have come to understand since the time I got involved with this activity of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, I find that the intent is very good within the ministry, within the Investor Education Protection Fund Authority, but we have to bring in mechanisms which are friendly, which are prompt, which can be measured. In my view, why should we have to wait for 7 years for the companies to give the money to us? 7 years is too long. If it has not been claimed for 1 year, I think the next year it should start getting processed and should be deposited. Number one. Number two, my small suggestion is that हम लोग सब ये सोचते हैं कि कानून हमारा रक्षक है, और कानून जब हमारा रक्षक है, आप ये ऐसा कैसे उम्मीद कर सकते हो कि एक आम आदमी इतने शिक्षक होंगे कि वो कर डालेंगे या वो सोच कर लेंगे कि जो भी हो रहा है वो सही नहीं है और हमको शिक्षित होना जरूरी है. Friends, don't expect too much from the consumer, please. They are already hard pressed in terms of earning 2 breads for the day. They're already hard pressed because we don't have something called social security in our country at all, especially for the middle class. And the middle class is always looking at, what do I do when I don't have a job? What do I do when I put the money in the bank also? I don't get it when I want it. So you have to understand, as part of the government, that we have, as citizens, a lot of trust and faith in the system. And I really tell you, personally, I'm so indebted and I so feel honored to have worked with the government for the last 40 years, outside, of course. But I've met some of the best bureaucrats with huge talents who have delivered and who are committed to the citizens. And that is why we find even the political executives, we have great political executives who are doing great job, and we admire them. There are only few, and you will always find them anywhere, whether it's a social work which people are doing, whether it's politics, everywhere you will find, wrong people are there who want to make a quick buck, who are unethical, who do not believe in the country's growth, who do not believe in the citizens, and we have to catch them. And catch them how? You have to catch them by bringing in good processes and systems. Systems which are accountable, transparent, systems which are citizen-friendly, systems which make sure that people who do wrong, they will be punished. There will be deterrent action. I heard many members, especially my legal luminaries who are members of the authority, they have said that our judicial system also needs to be changed and has to become more friendly, more modern, which our present Prime Minister is trying to do in his best of his ability. My short point is, friends, within the authority who are members, like you are constituting a subgroup, please make sure that we have representatives from the consumer organizations within these subgroups. We have consultations. We have more than 5,000 consumer organizations all over the country. Why are we not engaging with them? And I would appeal to the company secretary, the Institute of Company Secretaries. I will especially appeal to Ashish Gargji that please collaborate with the consumer groups also, who are spread all over the country, to ensure that investor protection awareness is made more friendly and it is time bound. You see, I came across recently certain agents who called me and said, "Sir, your dividends have gone to the welfare fund and I can help you in getting that money." So I wondered to myself, how did he get this information? When he can get this information and agent, why can't the authority appoint such people who should be paid to make sure that people whose money are lying, they are contacted and they are brought to the right place, handheld, and their money is returned? Imagine, आप सोचिए, एक दिन सुबह को किसी ने आपको फोन करता है और आपको फोन पे ये कहता है कि हम इन्वेस्टर एजुकेशन प्रोटेक्शन फंड के अथॉरिटी से बोल रहा हूं, आपका इतने आपका 1 लाख रुपया ड्यू है, आपको मिलना चाहिए, और हम आपको मदद करने के लिए फोन कर रहे हैं और हम आपको फॉर्म भेज रहे हैं, फोन पे बात कर रहे हैं और हम आपको मदद कर रहे हैं कि आप आइए, आपको हम मदद करेंगे। इस ढंग का यदि हमको एटीट्यूड मिल जाए, माहौल मिल जाए, तो हम समझते हैं कि हमारे ये जो प्रक्रिया है ये रियली सार्थक होगा. It will really give that right dividend in terms of the objective of such funds getting created. Because I must tell you all that this money which is there in that fund, it doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to the government. It doesn't belong to the authority. It doesn't belong to anybody who is involved with it. It belongs to that unfortunate consumer who for some reason is unaware or due to certain mechanisms not being friendly, he has not been able to access this money. The industry enjoys it for 7 years and then it comes to the fund. You have to make the industry more accountable, and that is my appeal to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. You see, there are good companies. Let's identify them. Let's figure out who are those companies who make sure that such money doesn't come to this fund. Who are those companies? Let's recognize them. Let's do a study on that. Let's do a study to figure out which are the companies where we should invest as investors. Which are the companies? So I am looking at this authority to become also a wing for the consumers, to educate them in the manner that they are empowered. I heard one of my panel members saying that you are illiterate, you get charmed by greed. No, my friend, he doesn't get charmed by greed. He gets charmed by keeping his future protected. His future is not protected. He wants money because he wants to secure his future. Let's work towards how we can secure his future so that he doesn't become greedy. And there are few people, of course I know, in the community who could be greedy. But let's look at the majority of them. And let's figure out how we can do it in a better manner. My closing remark is technology is the biggest enabler. And deterrent action against the offenders, against the fraudsters, can really help us to create an environment which will be investor friendly and in the interest of the investor. I want to tell you all that on behalf of the consumer groups, on behalf of the investors, we are 24/7 available with you and we will always be there. I want to thank the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, the IEPFA, ICSI, and all who are involved in organizing this and inviting me. I feel very delighted to have been invited, and I hope to see you all again very soon in some more achievements and in a new kind of a manner where we can all say together that we made it happen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद प्रोफेसर बिजॉन मिश्रा सर। विनिधानकर्ता शिक्षा एवं संरक्षण निधि प्राधिकरण कॉर्पोरेट कार्य मंत्रालय की ओर से राष्ट्रीय वेबिनार के समापन के अवसर पर हम उन सभी गणमान्य अतिथियों का हम धन्यवाद करना चाहते हैं। सभी प्रतिष्ठित वक्ताओं का बहुत बहुत हृदय से आभार। सबसे मुख्य तौर पर सचिव कॉर्पोरेट कार्य मंत्रालय एवं अध्यक्ष IPF अथॉरिटी और साथ ही गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर आज के विशिष्ट अतिथि आदरणीय डॉक्टर KP कृष्णन, हमारे एमिनेंट पैनलिस्ट और बहुत ही सम्माननीय सदस्यगण IPF अथॉरिटी के आप सभी का आभार। ICSI की ओर से मैं निवेदन करना चाहूंगी श्री नागेंद्र राव जी, उपाध्यक्ष ICSI, कि वे वेबिनार के समापन टिप्पणी करने की कृपा करें।
Thank you, ma'am. It is a proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks for this panel discussion on the focus on by Shri Navneet Chauhan ji, General Manager of IEPF, who spoke on the procedural aspects, SOP for looking into the IPF, the documentation required by the company stakeholders to follow documentation for claims, rightful claimant to receive the shares or the refunds, grievance redressal mechanism. He also spoke about the development of mobile app, which is going to come shortly, which will again help all the investors at large. On behalf of ICSI, thank you very much. May I request Dr. Nikhat Khan Madam to kindly display the Shaheed Ki Beti certificate to Mr. Navneet Chauhan ji, please. It is also my pleasant task to propose the vote of thanks to Dr. J.N. Gupta ji. He spoke about the awareness created about the IPF, issues about the investors' protection. Investors are not cautious, greed and grief. Self-protection is the most important one. I wish to thank Dr. J.N. Gupta ji for his sharing his word of wisdom on the investors' protection. I now request Dr. Nikhat Khan to kindly display the Shaheed Ki Beti certificate. Thank you. It is also my proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks to Professor Bijon Kumar Mishra ji. His eloquent spark fire we all have seen during the various television interviews, various fiery debates, the way in which he has the command, the way in which he has the respect of all the learned and all the members of the society at large. Sir, you spoke about the IPF to be pro-consumer, focus on consumers, consumer welfare, fund right from the history of journey from the Central Excise and Salt Act, the process to be investor friendly, consumers are hard pressed, trust and faith in system should be more accountable, deterrent action against the offender, need to reduce timeline, and we are all fortunate we have esteemed members in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs who time and again have ensured that the systems are more and more robust, and the way the claimant, it is very, very proud that we are also part of a Ministry of Corporate Affairs, ICSI, shouldering equal responsibility that the achievement done by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs to be informed to the general public at large, the various initiatives, the various awareness program which is done by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs for the betterment of the society and betterment of all the investors and public at large. I would once again, I will fail in my duty if I do not recognize the excellent moderation done by Madam Uma Ravla for this particular, the entire program on the celebration of the 4th IEPF. I also once again take this opportunity in thanking each and every participant, stakeholders who are present on this occasion right from 4 o'clock onwards, all the esteemed speakers, and I once again like to thank the Ministry of Corporate Affairs for us as an ICI to be a part of this mega event. As we say, life is full of celebration. I wish that we will celebrate each and every moment of our life, and the IPF will be a boon for all our investors, especially the small shareholders, small investors whose money are stuck for one or the other reason, and they will receive their rightful claim in days to come. So with this, I once again would like to thank each and every one present over here from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and from the IEPF authorities, all the members, speakers, and all the distinguished guests present today, and also all the participants of the ICSI and all the stakeholders. Thank you once again for coming and being a part of this mega celebration event celebrating the National Webinar on Investor Education and Awareness. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. On that note, the National Webinar on Investor Education and Awareness comes to an end. But as it is said, it is not an end, it is just the beginning. A journey of development, of togetherness, and of close association. The country will come down to normalcy, and we all will be seeing each other, celebrating great state awareness programs and conferences that were scheduled in March, and many more to come under the dynamic leadership of a wonderful leader as we have in our Secretary Sir and in our Joint Secretary Sir. On that note, IEPFA निवेशक के हित में, निवेशक की सुरक्षा में सदैव तत्पर है. IEPF जागरूक निवेशक की सुरक्षा का सच्चा साथी. On that note, this is Uma Iyer Ravla signing off. Namaskar.
Namaskar.